Hello, my name is Arben Gatsaferi. I'm currently studying at Wayne State University, double majoring in journalism and computer science. Previously, I worked for the school newspaper, The South End, and now I currently work for Apple. Currently, this summer, I'm enrolled in African American Studies. The end of this class required us to pick an important topic in the Black community and highlight it. Given that my sister is pregnant and due any day now, I decided to talk about Black maternal health and how Black women in general die way more than any other race. My project aims to discuss understanding the disparities in Black women maternal health versus any other race in America. In my project, I'll highlight maternal health in the US and discuss its history. I'll understand the relation between historical segregation and healthcare quality, and I'll discuss all of my research data and how it correlates with one another. I will also talk about medical biases and current US politics. To begin, we must talk about maternal health in the US in general. Maternal health has always been a major public health issue in the US, with some experts even saying that it's an ongoing crisis today. Over the years, maternal mortality has been at a steep decline. However, the US experiences approximately 58% more maternal deaths than any other country with similar levels of development. Even though the numbers have significantly dropped, Black women occupy 59% of maternal mortality countrywide. Did you know research has shown that Black women are nearly 4 times more likely to die due to childbirth than any other race? When I first heard this statistic, I was shocked, and I had to dig in more and figure out why. My research has led me to find quite a few things on this statistic, most of them actually relating to segregation and the history of African Americans. Although the US has been desegregated for multiple decades, disparities in wealth, healthcare, and education all still exist due to the racialized residential segregation that was enforced across the country for years. Evidence has indicated that segregation is connected to the increased health risk and complications among the Black community, with premature Black American deaths being up to 3 times more likely than that of white Americans. Research has shown in general that a person's income, location, education, and race all factor into the quality of care a person receives. With these findings, it's easy to understand why the disparity is so high for Black Americans. Segregation, implicit bias, and medical racism. It is important to understand what segregation is in order to understand how it causes the disparity in Black maternal health. The US has a long history of racist policies that specifically targeted Black communities that were, and in some cases still are, enforced by violent over-policing. Although the US has been desegregated for decades, the damage done still lingers today. The residual impact of segregation has left many African Americans at a severe disadvantage in society. These disadvantages directly correlate to maternal health quality. Racialized segregation has been generational in its effect across the African American community. Housing and neighborhood segregation purposely limited or broke prosperous Black neighborhoods apart. Segregated education limited the quality of education as well as income opportunities. Evidently enough, both neighborhood and income also play a role in quality of medical care someone receives. First, we'll talk about the disparity by location. Black women occupy nearly 59% of maternal mortality countrywide. This statistic is even higher in urban Black neighborhoods. Research has shown that women in majority Black middle-class areas were 54% more likely to experience infant death during pregnancy than women in majority white middle-class areas. The disparity does not end with just the mothers, however. Even if a baby is successfully born with no maternal mortality, there is still risks. Infants born in predominantly Black neighborhoods have a 60% higher likelihood of neonatal mortality. When observing urban America, majority Black census tracts have a 177% higher risk of infant mortality than any other demographic. These statistics only become more jarring when factoring in income as well. When factoring in income, studies have shown that women in lower income neighborhoods have a 37% higher risk of infant or maternal complications post-birth. Preterm births are also higher amongst lower income groups due to lower residential conditions and poorer environmental quality. When factoring in income to the previous slide statistics, they increase by an additional 20%, meaning that low-income Black neighborhoods have the highest level of risk. When talking about education, it also factors into risk as well. Education mostly dictates the risk of infant mortality. Women who are unable to attain a high school education experience a 2.4 times higher risk of infant mortality. How does this all correlate though? Why am I talking about this? Well, it's simple. Due to the segregated history of the US, many African Americans are left at a severe socioeconomic and socio-political disadvantage in society. These disadvantages are all elements of the topics previously discussed. African Americans disproportionately have access to the least number of resources and growth opportunities in the US. The disparity in maternal health is understood further when we begin to analyze social behaviors in the US as well. This brings me to my next topic, medical bias. Race is the largest risk factor during pregnancy. Studies used to gather previous statistics regarding socio-political status fail to mention medical bias that occurs towards women of color. That's simply because bias does not have such a concrete concrete statistical value that other factors do. However, bias can be documented and is academically proven to contribute heavily to why so many more Black deaths occur than any other race. Stereotyping and personal beliefs have often led to Black women suffering due to not being taken seriously. A recent study found that healthcare providers were less likely to identify pain in the facial expressions of Black faces. Many Black women and their families have begun to publicize their experiences with medical bias to bring attention to the issue. Famed tennis superstar Serena Williams even had a near-death scare after giving birth to her child, where after hours of asking for scans, the doctors brushed her aside until she couldn't feel her legs anymore. When they finally did give her CAT scans, they realized she had blood clots that could have killed her. Williams says that had she not been a professional athlete, she would have probably been ignored even further and eventually succumbed to her blood clots. The family of Shalon Irving also talked about the tragic loss of their daughter. At 36 years old, Shalon Irving was an epidemiologist for the Centers of Disease Control who actually focused her studies on maternal mortality. 3 weeks after giving birth, she died from complications due to high blood pressure. Although devastated, her mother, Wanda Irving, felt it necessary that her story be told. United States Representative Cori Bush of Missouri has been advocating for Black maternal health since her career started. So much so that even during a congressional hearing regarding Black maternal mortality, she talked about her own experiences with medical bias. When Representative Bush was pregnant with her first child, Zion, her doctor encouraged her to speak up about anything unusual she was feeling. She did, telling her physician that she was having severe pains, but her concerns were dismissed. A week later, Bush went into early labor. During the congressional hearing, Bush described the situation by stating, "At 23 weeks, my son was born 1 pound 3 ounces. His ears were still in his head, his eyes were still fused shut, his fingers were smaller than rice, and his skin was translucent. A Black baby. Translucent." Bush recalled that afterwards the doctors apologized for not listening to her. After reading these anecdotes extensively, I began asking what is currently being done in the US to help alleviate this issue. Black women die an approximate 3.55 times more due to birthing complications than any other race. Professionals even argue that 60% of these deaths are preventable. Many women take to social media to voice their concerns on this issue. The entertainment industry has also used its platform to highlight this issue, the most recent being Fox Network's The Resident, which aired an episode that follows a Black woman who dies due to medical neglect after giving birth. Current Vice President Kamala Harris declared January 23rd as Maternal Health Awareness Day as well. That brings me to my next slide. How is the US government addressing this? Honestly, the US is hardly taking any action to increase maternal care at all. The US has even moved more backwards than it has forward. Medicaid is the largest financial supporter of maternal care in the US, which provides coverage to mothers for up to 60 days post-birth. Many politicians say that this isn't enough and have been advocating for longer coverage periods. The most recent change in maternal health care has been the overturning of US Supreme Court ruling Roe v. Wade. On June 24th, 2022, the U.S. Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. Currently, medical abortion is no longer a constitutional right in 22 states. This is important to maternal health because Black women seek abortions at the highest rate demographically. And now, Black women are also more likely to live in areas where contraception is harder to access. Black women in these restricted areas will now be forced to carry unwanted pregnancies to term, which will only increase maternal mortality. Overall, Black women are 4 times more likely to die from childbirth. Black infants are 180% more likely to not survive childbirth. Medical bias is the sole largest contributor to such high disparities between races. Residual segregation is proven to be the cause of lower quality of care for many Black women. Modern-day setbacks will cause even more issues in the future, I fear. Overall, the future of maternal health doesn't look that great either. Modern-day setbacks, especially with the most recent Supreme Court overruling, will just set us back even further than we already are.